Hello friends, it's Amy from Buttercake. Thanks for joining me in another tutorial. I'm going to show you how I did this very bright and colorful floral topped cake. This would be great for a special occasion, birthday, anniversary, something really nice. Here I already have my 7-inch cake crumb coated and ready to go. And I'm doing a second coat of buttercream. Because I decided to do very colorful flowers and piping on the sides of the cake, I went with a white base. This is just my go-to Swiss meringue. I did a 2-pound butter batch, and I will provide a link down in the description if you would like to know how I make my buttercream. I love working with Swiss meringue because it gets really smooth and it pipes quite nicely. Using my spatula there to smooth out the sides, I go on pretty thick and then take a good bit off to get those sides prepped and ready for the decor. Very gradually taking those top edges off as I spin my turntable. Just taking little tiny bits off each time so that I can get it perfectly smooth, but also level. Starting out here at the bottom, I saw this really wonderful idea for a vintage style border on the bottom, and it's very intricate, and I thought I would try my hand at it. I'm starting with my grapey purple here with an open star tip. I start at a 45-degree angle, applying pressure there at the base, and then moving up, stopping pressure and pulling away. And I ended up doing that the whole way around the cake with this purple buttercream that I used a little bit of red and some blue to achieve. Then I'm taking this gorgeous royal blue with a number 2 round tip and piping some string work. Doing double strings here and skipping a shell in between so that they end up crossing over like this. I thought that was so gorgeous, the way that they kind of weave together along the bottom. And once it's all done, the whole bottom border is piped. It really looked really, really neat. So just continue on skipping and then going back to the one you skipped to start and then connecting it to the next one. It is a little bit of a tricky technique just because once you drop that string and then it connects with the other strings before, it creates a little bit of a bump. Now I'm taking another small star tip and doing these little swirls and then curving the buttercream around the bottom of the shell. So it's a little loop. And then just dragging my tip across, stopping pressure and pulling away. And that is a hot pink, which I used a rose pink gel color to achieve. Coming in with this bright, almost neon yellow to do little rosettes to clean up the tops of those shells and to cover up where the string work meets so that we have a nice finished look. Oh, had a little oopsies there, but no worries. These are easy to correct, and sometimes if I mess something up, I'll just take it off and start over. Going in with a number 104 petal tip, and I'm going about halfway up the cake here to create some swags. And I have that narrow end angled slightly off the surface of the cake while my wider end is touching the cake. I didn't measure, I'm just kind of eyeballing this border around the cake. Then I came back in with a nice bright sunshiny orange, and I'm doing some more loops with strings to cover up, again, the junctions of those swags as well as the top edge to give it a little more of a finished look. These were really fun to do. I like the final result of those. That was something new that I tried, and I thought it turned out pretty well. There we are. There you can see the bottom and middle borders. I thought they turned out quite nice. Then I'm filling in that top space with a reverse shell technique, but using a larger round tip. So number 5 round tip, and going back in with that hot pink. So I'm just reversing the direction each time to cover up the previous end and create a nice variable border around that top edge. Very simple. And then going in with the same technique with a very nice lime green color and just filling in that little gap with these little curlicues, doing them in different directions and spacing them out to where they just fill in all of that area basically. And then I've been seeing this string work online and I just really adore it. And I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. Oh, it's quite difficult actually, as you can see, to attach the buttercream strings to such a small edge on the previous buttercream swag. So I definitely had to take my time with this. That's real time there. Going very slow, letting the buttercream fall down on its own and then just barely attaching it and pulling up very gently so as not to disturb any of the other decorations. Very therapeutic though. It might have taken a while, but it was very enjoyable to do. Of course, that's that same grape purple shade. I really like adding a little more blue to my purples. I think it gives them a nice tone. Now I have a tray there. I decided to pipe all of my flowers onto parchment squares and put them on the tray and put them in the freezer so that I could lift them later on. This is a red rose, just a traditional rose. So I start with my wide base, do my center, and then slowly work around that center, creating smaller petals, and then the petals will get larger as I go down that base. And you also want to sort of angle the petals out a little bit further as you work your way down, just to give it more of a realistic look. With these particular ones, the larger petals, as I worked farther down, I ended up adding a little more movement. So I applied more pressure to my bag and did some squiggling motions to add ruffles to those leaves, just to give it more of a realistic look. I thought that was quite lovely. Then I carefully transferred these down onto my tray. I piped a few of each color, coming with that purple, and I created some chrysanthemums. This is a small curved petal tip. Not as large of a base as the rose, but still pretty significant. And these take a little bit of time because you have to pipe all these little petals individually. But the effect is really nice when it's fully done. So I'm curving these center ones inwards. You can kind of see it's an upward motion, but I also push forward a little bit. And then as I work my way down on subsequent rows, I slowly move those tips further and further out. So I get to where I'm just going straight up. And you want to stop pressure before you get to the top so that the petals kind of come to a point. And I'm starting to curve them out slightly, but each one a little bit different. So some are pointing in different directions, while others are sort of curling out at the tip, and others are pointing straight up. And then some I do longer that really unfurl at the bottom, like that one, you can see. And that'll also cover up the bottom of the base, having those bottom petals just draping down like that. There we are. That looks so beautiful. Did a few of those as well. Got those onto my tray. The next flower I did in this very bright neon yellow. I love the color of that yellow. I used a sunshine yellow gel color. Now I'm using a larger curved petal tip, created a base, and then these center petals, I'm almost laying flat over one another while curving them around that base. And then slowly working that top edge of the tip out at an angle. So I'm changing the angle of my tip as I go further down and really overlapping these petals. So these flowers look slightly more symmetrical than the previous two. Gives it more of a clean look, but I really love those. I think they're quite nice. That one flopped a little bit, but that's okay. Now I have all my flowers piped and ready to go. I also did some hot pink roses to fill up my tray, froze them for about 20 minutes, and then I just piped a ring in the center of my cake. So this is going to raise up the center flowers and give them a little bit of an angle. I do have a glove on here to protect the flowers from the heat of my hand, just so it's easier to transfer and they don't get damaged. I find that a lot easier. If you don't have gloves though, no worries, just give your hands a good wash and try to work quickly. You can see how gently I'm peeling them off and sort of placing them around the cake. And then I started adding little bits of buttercream that I had left over from the flowers to attach these larger ones, just to make sure that they didn't slide, as they are frozen. And then the buttercream underneath the cake I refrigerated as well. So if there's nothing to stick to, they can kind of slide down. But the benefit of freezing these is you can really fit them in at different angles and get them snug and make it look like a nice arrangement. Now I'm coming in with this royal blue, and I'm doing these little 5 petal flowers. That is a 104 petal tip, and the leaves kind of just do the work themselves. These I did fresh and transferred onto my cake to fill in gaps with a clean pair of scissors. So I do a small base on these just to be able to do these fresh, and then pipe the petals on top. You can see how they curl under the previous petal, and then it's a very slight turning motion, which does all of the work pretty much. I don't move my piping hand very much. I mostly move the flower nail itself. Different angle here, just so you can kind of see how those fresh buttercream flowers just sort of fit down into those spaces, and it gives them even more movement. So I love how that looks. I'm coming in here to pipe some bright orange buds with just a little star tip. So it's just a base, and then I'm piping stars around it. Again, this is just another filler technique. And also tying in all of the colors that I used on the sides of the cake. And I came back in with the green and just applied a dot of buttercream to the centers of all of those stars to really finish it off, give it a nice bright pop of color. I just did a few of these clusters on top, not too many. I did want to leave some spaces also for leaves to fill in at the end. And these little flowers needed a center as well, so I took that yellow and a number 1 tip and piped just small little dots that I pulled up quickly to create sort of filaments in the center of those flowers, just randomly piping. And then here I used a 352 leaf tip, and you can see that I'm actually moving the end of the tip up and down just to give them some more texture. If you just apply pressure, you'll get a very flat leaf, but these give you nice curls to the leaf. A little more dimension. And then you can also move them down the sides of the cake, change their directions, and really fill in and make it more dynamic. Overall, this cake was a labor of love, but I definitely loved it in the end. I hope you do as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like or leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I'd love to chat. Thanks for hanging out. Do take care. Bye-bye.